Now here, while he was experimenting all this, the government of India announced the Rowlatt Act in 1919. And I have already explained it to you that a person can be put behind the bars without telling him the reason that why he has been put behind the bars, as to what crime has he committed. So the Indian people were very unhappy and they thought of revolting against the Rowlatt Act. Gandhi gave his first call, and the first non-violent civil disobedience movement was started off on 6th April. People protested, there were rallies, demonstrations in a peaceful manner, and everything seemed to have come to a halt. Now, naturally this was not liked by the government, who tried to crush the movement with an iron hand. The reaction of the government was so intense that it resorted to non-violent methods. Gandhi was told not to enter from Delhi, and other big leaders were also imprisoned, which meant that the people of India became leaderless for the time being. They even resorted to such measures like they fired on the procession, which was a peaceful one, on 10th April. When they were not satisfied even by this, because the people were still protesting, rallying, demonstrating, but in a peaceful manner. That is, the leader had played his role in an excellent manner and the people were following him. Therefore, the government imposed martial law. When the government imposed martial law, that means that was the end of, or the suspension of, the basic rights of the Indians. And if the Britishers thought that by resorting to such inhuman measures, that is by firing at peaceful processions at Amritsar or by imposing martial law in Punjab, they would have become successful in actually suppressing the nationalism in India, they were mistaken, because you cannot kill the spirit of nationalism by the use of violence. Brutality actually enhances nationalism, and this is what happened in India. I continue with it in the next clipping. You have already seen that on 10th April 1919, the government had opened fire at a peaceful procession in Amritsar, followed by a martial law. Now here, when the martial law had been imposed, the people were very unhappy and they wanted to protest. But on 13th April 1919, the people of Punjab gathered together at Jallianwala Bagh to celebrate their festival Baisakhi. Since most of the people had come from outside Amritsar, they were not aware that there was a martial law imposed in Amritsar. Now here, when they were celebrating, suddenly General Dyer entered the Jallianwala Bagh and he blocked the only exit which was there and opened fire. Thousands of people were killed, that is men, women and children who were innocent and who did not know why they had been fired. Now General Dyer was actually praised by the Britishers for this infamous act, which again made the Indians very, very angry. But this infamous Jallianwala Bagh incident went a long way in actually creating and deepening the feeling of nationalism in India. Now Gandhi thought that he must start with a bigger movement and he must try and infuse the feeling of nationalism amongst the Indians for a bigger movement. Now with this aim in mind, he joined hands with the Khilafat movement that was going on in India. Khilafat movement in India was started by Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali for the wrongs which had been done to the Caliph of Turkey, and they were protesting against that. Gandhi thought that this was the best time when Hindu and Muslim unity could be brought to the forefront. Therefore, the Khilafat movement and the non-cooperation movement that Gandhi started with got submerged with each other, giving rise to a bigger mass movement to threaten the British Empire. So, remember, after the Jallianwala Bagh incident and the small experiments that Gandhi had done earlier, here he started with the bigger mass movement, non-cooperation, getting merged into the Khilafat movement. The methods that were to be applied in this mass movement were similar, that is, protesting, demonstrating, rallying peacefully, telling the British government that whatever they were doing was wrong. Gandhi had to teach the Indians a novel method of non-violence. But before actually this was to go on a large scale, a session of the Congress was to be held in order to decide how to go about, and were the people ready for such a big mass movement. So, at the Nagpur session of 1920, finally it was declared that the Indians were ready for such a peaceful protest against the Britishers, and it gave a kind of green signal that they were ready and they could start off with this mass movement. So, remember, the incident of Jallianwala Bagh led to the first big mass movement, non-cooperation, along with the Khilafat movement. Now, this was a signal to the Britishers that the Indians had become united. They had a great leader with them, and now was the time that they are ready for giving a blow to the mighty British Empire. So, herein started with the non-cooperation movement, but now we will see that the non-cooperation movement had a different stand for different individuals and groups of people. How did they fight? Why did they fight? And what was the method that they applied is what we are going to see in the next clipping.